With more Americans thinking about our lacking healthcare system, I think this book is incredibly timely. I think it will resonate with a lot of people. And as a chronically ill and disabled person, I felt seen reading this book. Hi, I'm Tiffany. Welcome to Towering TBR. Today, I want to gush about the book Small Rain by Garth Greenwell. I read this so late in the year that it's probably not making my favorites, but this was a 5-star read, and I highly encourage you to pick it up. While it's not entirely autobiographical, the author did go through a medical crisis in 2020, and he definitely has a vivid understanding of what it's like to be seriously ill. So, this book is set during the COVID pandemic when our unnamed protagonist gets seriously ill and is admitted to the hospital. He is alone for much of the time, and it's written in a stream of consciousness where he is just basically thinking over his life, what he has done, what he wishes he had done differently, and grappling with his own mortality. If you've ever dealt with chronic pain, I think this will resonate quite a lot. And if you have a chronically ill person in your life, I think this gives you a visceral understanding of what it's like. It's a viewpoint that healthy people don't think about until they're affected. And in fact, our character, he said he had always been hearty and hale and had never considered that he might be dying. The depictions of pain are incredibly realistic. Our narrator struggles to communicate because his brain is just blotting out anything but the pain. He says, "The pain defied description. On a scale of 1 to 10, it demanded a different scale." So he waits in the ER for hours before he is finally seen. This definitely looks at our very broken healthcare system and how the COVID pandemic really exacerbated quite a lot of problems. Greenwell somehow really manages to capture the timelessness of pain, of how it doesn't seem like anything else is existing. You are just in this space, this bubble of pain that you can't think about anything else. And he starts negotiating, and I thought that that was incredibly realistic. He says, "I began negotiating with it. With the pain or with my body, I'm not sure which, or if a meaningful distinction can be drawn. If it stays here at this level, if it doesn't get any worse, I can bear it. It's not unbearable yet." The protagonist is a poet and a professor, and he thinks a lot about art and its importance in his life. In fact, Small Rain actually comes from a poem that he contemplates. He says, "I would say to them, all art is a message. We want to communicate something, but maybe not an entirely graspable something. Maybe there's a kind of sense only nonsense can convey, so that the poem becomes not just a message, but an object of contemplation, of devotion even, inexhaustible." Later, he thinks about a different poem that he taught and says, "I had read and taught it so often it felt internal to me, like a bit of my consciousness had somehow stumbled into the world, a prosthetic consciousness, which is something poems can be. They can create new spaces in our interiors sometimes, not just giving language to something that was mute before, but generating something new." Poetry isn't the only art form he loves. He also loves books. And he says, "The bookstore had closed in lockdown, but kept making deliveries. And since it seemed possible it might not survive, might close permanently as stores all over the country were closing, ordering books became not just a pleasure, but felt ludicrously almost philanthropic, a moral good," which I, again, really related with. He finds out that his condition is quite serious and will likely shorten his lifespan. And he kicks himself for just assuming that he was going to be healthy and live a long life. And it really throws a lot of his expectations in the air. This event that he has no control over just completely radically changes his life. And unfortunately, he has to confront those expectations and alter them. It also changes how he feels about his body. He says, "What a strange thing a body is. How eerie to be filled with blood and covered in hair, to be a machine, any part of which might fail. And how strange to have hated it so much, when it had always been so serviceable. When it had done more or less everything I needed until now. When for more than 40 years it had worked so well." If you have been healthy all of your life, You will not understand what a blessing that is until it is taken from you. I think this book gives a really good insight to what it's like. Reading this book felt incredibly intimate to me, seeing some of my innermost thoughts written on the page. This is a beautiful contemplation of life. I don't usually like stream of consciousness books, but this felt like the exact perfect way to tell this story. Garth Greenwell has an ability to make me feel really strong emotions without it feeling overly manipulative. He's incredibly skilled, and this book was amazing. This book obviously covers some very difficult topics, so please look up trigger warnings if you need to. Please take care. But if you think that this sounds like a book at all that you would learn something from or would enjoy or would help you understand a chronically ill person in your life, I urge you to pick it up. This book is timely and absolutely wonderful. 5 stars all the way. I feel so seen in this book, and I know that others out there will too. So, have I convinced you to read this? Let's chat about it more in the comments down below. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye.